Good afternoon, this is Ed from Wright, and today we're going to talk about what makes up the ideal lineup on your trailer. And we're going to first talk about if you have two mowers, maybe this is a single axle trailer, maybe it's one person, maybe it's two people on that crew, and then three mowers if you're running a longer trailer or more people. Certainly it could even be more than that. But this is really the core. This is the core where I believe you can oftentimes make your best money. Bigger is not always better. You have to have the ideal set of equipment for the job that you're doing, and then we'll talk about where you might change out other pieces of equipment depending on the types of jobs that you're doing. And one thing I think is really important is there's a temptation to have an arsenal of every piece of equipment that you could have for every single job. But the thing is, when you bring that equipment with you all week long, you're not going to be as productive and efficient. And so I do think it's very important that you specialize your business on particular types of property, and that your routes, your equipment, your whole business model is really tuned into that specific type of mowing. Mowing grass in general is not, it's a very, very broad concept. You know, you could be doing rural business with 5-acre lawns, you could be doing corporate campus work, you could be doing residential properties, and all of those different situations really need different equipment to be extremely productive. Okay, so the core lineup here is an Intensity 36 and a ZK61. These machines are both long-established machines. The ZK is in its second generation. We've been making it for more than a decade. Very powerful, very capable, rock-solid machine. And the Intensity is very similar. The Intensity is the second-gen version of what used to be our RH many years ago. And it's been in the market for a number of years. Very reliable, very solid, a long life machine, heavy duty engines, heavy duty air cleaners, all that kind of thing is on the Intensity. These are both pump and motor mowers. So the Intensity is your trim mower. Anytime you have to use a trimmer a whole lot, you're wasting time. You really want to minimize your trimming, and a lot of that has to do with using a mower that's going to get in all the corners and around the edges as much as possible, between mulch beds, that kind of thing. And sometimes it's actually better to use a smaller, maybe you could put a 48-inch deck on a particular property, but by using a 36-inch, you're going to throw less grass on mulch beds and that kind of thing, and the extra pass or two that you make with the 36, you make up in the areas you're able to reduce in trimming. And so the 36 is really, really ideal for that. The other core piece of equipment is the mower that's going to do your bulk mowing very quickly, very productively. That's why I'm showing here 37 horsepower, tons of power to drive that 61-inch deck, and this will make quick work of all your open areas. It's a very versatile mower. Stand-on mowers generally are a lot more versatile on terrain and that kind of thing than a sit-down rider. And when you're doing high turnover, property after property, many properties per day, the stand-on mowers really, really shine. And so the ZK gives you that capability, versatility, but it's still a fairly compact machine. And then if you are going to run three mowers, a second 61 typically is really going to up that production level. You don't really need more than one trim mower. You could run one trim mower to two or three larger mowers is going to be a pretty good ratio most of the time. If you're doing bigger acreage, you might step up to a 72-inch deck for at least one of these machines, if not maybe both. If you're doing smaller properties with a higher turn, you might go down to 52-inch on the ZK. If most of your business is quarter acre and small residentials, it might make sense to go down to a 52-inch machine. You just don't have long enough straightaways where you can build up the ground speed and that kind of thing. And bigger is not always better, and a 52-inch machine is going to get in a little bit tighter places than a ZK might, although they're both pretty compact. The other thing you might do is you might get into a 48, and a lot of that's driven by gate size. Every part of the country has different traditions of zoning and how subdivisions were built and that kind of thing. And so a 48 may make sense for you as well for that secondary mower there. On the trim mower side, if all of your gates are the opening is 48, but with the gate hinges and all that, you're a little bit smaller, and you can get a 42 through the majority of your gates, or all the properties you're bidding are 42 or larger. The 42 advantage over the 36 isn't just the additional couple inches. Part of the advantage is that the 36, the deck is about as wide as the wheels. The 42, the deck is wider than the rear wheels by a good amount, which means that you can get around fence posts or you can get that deck tighter into corners and that kind of thing and reduce your trimming a little bit. But you don't want to go up to a 42 if it means that you're going to be using a push mower on a bunch of properties because it doesn't fit through the gate. You really, really never want to use a push mower as much as possible. It's time, it's fatigue, it's less revenue, and so picking your ideal mower here is critical. The other thing you can do is step down to a 32-inch standard B or a 36-inch standard B. The reason to go to a B, I think this is almost a little bit of a misinterpretation. The B series is not a homeowner or consumer series of mowers. Our standard Bs are meant for commercial use. The thing about the B is that if you have a lineup of a big mower and a small mower, you're probably going to put 3 or 4 times as many hours on your big mower as you will your small mower. And so this mower is going to see intermittent use compared to this mower, which is going to see pretty close to continuous use. And so a standard B is a little bit lighter duty. It's the biggest thing is we go from heavy duty air cleaner to the Kawasaki FS engine with the air cleaner that's under the plastic hood there. It works fine. You got to clean it out more often, that kind of thing. And it's significantly less expensive than the Intensity. And there's trade-offs, and you can study those product lines to better understand that. But the point of the B, especially the small B, is that it's for where you need a trim mower. You need it there reliably all the time, but you're not going to put nearly as many hours on it as you would this machine. But in the B, you can get down to 32 inches, and that's where you can get into a lot more of these areas if you're dealing with really, really compact areas. Maybe you're doing a certain mix of townhomes even. The 32 could really save you time versus using a push mower. So that's where the B comes in. Generally speaking, I talked about the X already. If you're on quarter acre and smaller properties, it might make more sense to run an X than a ZK, especially a 52 or 48 inch. We actually don't sell a whole lot of standard X61s because by the time you put a 61-inch deck on the standard X frame, you sort of might as well go to a ZK. That's where you really get to bigger engines, bigger tires. You can really move that deck around a lot more with a lot more control and that kind of thing with the ZK, and you're going to make your money back pretty quickly by being on the larger frame in a 61. We also offer a B 52 and 48 inch. If you are running a full schedule constantly all year, the B with the large deck is probably not the best choice. You probably want to be in one of these heavier duty mower categories. If you're doing landscaping on a part-time basis, maybe you're doing a couple days a week, something like that, this mower is going to last you years. And so that's really what the B 48 and 52 are for. The combo of a 32 and 52 or 36 and 52 Bs, you get a lot of work done in a very short amount of time, but you're not going to want to run those mowers on a full schedule, especially the large one, all year long. You're going to want to be into an X or ZK. Okay, so we said, if you're doing larger properties, you have a larger trailer, a crew truck, that kind of thing, and you're in a third mower, I would generally say a ZK61, another mower. You could do a 61 and a 72, for example. But then this 72 is always probably going to be on the front of the trailer, and it's going to get rarely used if you've got 2 people and 3 mowers in the truck. So you just got to be aware, are you going to haul this asset around all year long and not use it a whole lot? If you have 2 61s, both those machines can be traded out, without missing a beat, whether it's for maintenance or whatever. And so sometimes it's better to have 2 mowers of the same size than to have a variety in a case like that. And then, it's definitely a high-performing scenario if you had an Intensity 36 and 2 standard X52s. It is lighter on your trailer, depending on your trailer capacity. You can fit a lot of these things in. Even the 72-inch mower, it's 6 foot wide, but it's actually 1 inch shorter in length than it is wide. So you could definitely pack, you could put 3 72s on an 18-foot trailer. So it's not so much about trailer space. It's really about the best lineup all around for your business. So 2 X52s and a 36 for sure will get the work done. A lot of it has to do with, are these properties you can make up time on, or you're pretty limited in their shape and size where horsepower isn't a constraint, and that's where you might be more into the X's. Now, if you're doing pure acreage, ZK72s give you a lot of versatility. You can get around you have a slope with trees, you can get around that kind of stuff a lot easier. The mower is very compact, so that even though it has a bigger deck, it still contours in the grass pretty well. But you may want to step up to a ZXT sit-down rider. And generally here we make it as a 52. So if you really need tons of power, 40 horsepower and a 52-inch deck, and you're mulching, that's where you might run a ZXT 52. A ZXT 61 is the sweet spot for a bagging system. In most cases, you can leave the blower on the deck of a 61 and get it in a trailer. If you put the collection system on a 72, you will make up better time on bagging, but the thing is you'll probably, in most cases, have to take the blower off the side of the deck in order to get the 72-inch into the trailer. It's just too wide at that point. But if you're doing collection, I would definitely add a ZXT 61. If it's all collection, then maybe 2 of them. If it's partial collection, then maybe 1 of them on the trailer. But I'll tell you, bagging with 40 horsepower really makes the difference. Those baggers need a lot of power. Our bagger moves a lot of air. It has a lot of airflow in it. And the 40 horsepower really makes the difference when you're in the ZK. So I think that's a lot of how I'd frame, what's the best lineup that you have. It really starts with the Intensity 36 and a ZK 61. It builds out there depending on the type of properties that you're running. The other thing we'll just talk about real briefly here is what about walk-behinds and fixed decks? Walk-behinds have their place, especially if you have a slope where the grass is really struggling to grow. That lighter weight machine is going to cause less erosion in a situation like that. But the thing is that walk-behind is going to be much less productive on every other property throughout the week. And so that's a mower that's probably going to end up in the front of the trailer. It's going to rarely get used, and typically hard to justify compared to the production that you get with one of the stand-on style mowers. The other option is a fixed deck mower. Now, fixed deck mowers is a long-standing tradition. The advantage to the fixed deck mowers is they are rock solid. There's like no moving parts on them, but you can't change the deck height. So if you're climbing curbs or you're seasonally changing your cut height, the deck doesn't float over terrain and that kind of thing. The fixed deck does, has that longevity aspect to it more so than some of the other mowers with more features. It is, I would say, a category that's, from our standpoint, we see it continue to shrink every year. But there is certainly dedicated following people that are very interested in it. One thing that we hear is we like the fixed deck because you can't screw up the height and cut the property at a wrong level. We want every property to be the same height for it to never get messed up with. Well, one of the things that could be a solution to that is most of the rest of our mowers, the way the height selector works, you can always put a bolt through it below where the handle sits to keep the deck from going down lower. So you can always lock out most of the other machines so that the deck still floats if you go over terrain, but you can't adjust it. So overall, that's our lineup. Hopefully this is helpful to you as you think about what's your specialty in your business and how does your equipment align with that specialty. Really be careful that you're not trying to do too much. Focus your business on what gives you the most profit, where you have the highest production, and align your equipment to that scenario, and that'll really help you make a lot better money. Hopefully this is helpful to you, and I hope you have a great rest of the summer.